everyone. Welcome back to The Closing Argument. My name is Lisa Marchese, and today I am really excited because we're going to talk about one of my favorite tools and techniques that I have used for years to prepare and deliver great opening statements and closing arguments, to deliver great client presentations, pitches, you name it. I want to share this tool with you guys today because it will help you the next time you have to give a very important presentation, a very important speech to clients, to colleagues, to a greater audience. So let's jump right in. Let me ask you guys a question. What do elevators, goldfish, and persuasion, what could they possibly have in common? Today we're going to answer that question, and I promise nothing crazy. I'm not going to ask you to imagine yourself sitting in an elevator with your worst enemy or your worst nightmare. That would be cruel and unusual punishment even for us. What we're going to talk about is what I call the elevator speech. It is a great tool of persuasion. It is something that will help you prepare and give more persuasive, more concise, more direct, more meaningful speeches in your professional lives. So what is this elevator speech anyway? So I want you to think about every time you've been in an elevator, think about how long the elevator ride usually is. Now, think about that elevator ride, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Now I want you to add something to this mental image. You're thinking about that same elevator ride, but now there's only two people in the elevator, you and another person, and not just any person. This is a very important person. This is someone that you have to explain a complex problem to. This is someone that you have to offer a solution to the problem. And this is someone you have to convince that what you're offering, your solution, is the right one. And the last thing in this scenario that I'm asking you to think about is you only have the length of time of the elevator ride to give this presentation and convince this very important person. That is, in its most basic form, the elevator speech. You've got 1 to 2 minutes to convince this person. How are you going to do it? What are you going to say? How are you going to use your time efficiently? Well, let me tell you a little bit about how I use this technique over many years in trying a lot of cases. And the big cases I tried, both criminal and civil, many of them lasted for weeks, some months. We had a very complex set of facts, a very complicated legal and factual issues. And when it came to closing argument, it was my opportunity to do three things. And these three things, whether you're giving a closing argument or a presentation in your own workplaces, are the pillars of persuasion. The first thing I had to do is I had to explain a very complex problem in very simple, basic terms that were easy to understand. The second thing I had to do is convince the jurors that my position was the correct position, that we were right. But it doesn't stop there, because the third and the most important pillar of persuasion is I had to motivate them. I had to give them a reason to take an action that would have supported my position. In the case of a jury, it was vote for my position, vote in favor of a verdict that supports my client. In your case, in the workplace, if it's a client pitch, give us the work, hire us, we're the best, adopt our proposal, whatever. That's the third and the most important pillar of persuasion, is motivation. So how did I use the elevator speech to prepare closing arguments? Well, it's very simple, and you can do this with yourself, you can do this with your colleagues, whomever. But for me, what I would do, I would take my trial team, the attorneys, my secretary, the paralegals, the administrative people that had been working and supporting the case. I'd gather them all in a conference room. I'd sit them down and I'd say, okay, guys, time for the elevator speech. And we would go around the table, and everybody had 1 to 2 minutes max. And I asked each person this case that they'd been living with for months, sometimes even years. Tell me what this case is about to you in 1 minute, 2 minutes. Tell me what it's about to you. It's a hard exercise, but if you're going to do it well, and if you're really going to tell somebody what this case is about, what my project is about, what my proposal is about, and you have a limited amount of time to do it, the elevator speech will help you prepare and deliver an outstanding message, a persuasive message, because the only way you can really communicate persuasively in that amount of time is by using themes and creative ways of explaining and motivating and convincing. We use themes, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Why is the elevator speech so effective and so useful? It forces us to identify the most important things to us in a given set of facts, in a given scenario. It forces us to focus on what's really important. What do I really need to convey? And it's a more challenging task in our world today. I was trying cases for many years, and when I first walked into a courtroom, there was no such thing as laptops. I am dating myself, and I will gladly give that up for the point I'm making. But when I first started trying cases, we didn't have laptops or PowerPoint. Our job of persuasion, of illustrating, of recreating an event in the minds of jurors was more difficult. But in a lot of ways, it was also a little easier because people had longer attention spans 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. My point is this: technology has given us better tools of communication, but it hasn't necessarily made us better communicators. And one of the consequences of technology is that people have shorter attention spans. Enter the goldfish. I told you we were going to tie all these things together. So I want to share something with you, and it'll put into perspective why the elevator speech is important. In 2015, Microsoft did a study, and it was a very interesting study because it looked at the attention span of humans, but not only our attention span, it compared our attention span to goldfish. And what was the result of this study? Well, goldfish have a longer attention span than humans, okay? That was the study consequence. I mean, that was the study result. We have less ability to pay attention than our friends, the goldfish, that we've had as pets when we were children. And you don't really need a study to confirm what we already know intuitively. We see it every day. We experience it every day. People have short attention spans. I'm sure some of you are probably about to click off, and I don't blame you. It is what it is. But I hope you're listening, because this is really an important subject. How do we find a way to consolidate our message and make it more persuasive? Well, the elevator speech can help, because the elevator speech recognizes that people have short attention spans, and it forces us to consolidate our message into the most important things. Now, I want you to think a little bit about the elevator speech in practice as we're trying to consolidate our message into a very persuasive, a very, very effective presentation. The way that you have to use the elevator speech, the most important aspect of our 3 pillars of persuasion: to explain, to convince, and to motivate. At the center of those 3 pillars is the use of themes, thematic persuasion. What is a theme? We know what themes are, but it is, in its most basic sense, an extrapolation of our common life experiences. A theme is something that everybody can easily understood. A theme carries with it a belief system. You hear the theme and you all of a sudden will adopt not only a belief system, but you'll have feelings, ideas, motivations about things. Let's take a look at just a couple of them to illustrate my point. Some of the most common themes that we encounter every day in the business world, in our personal lives. The first theme, greed. We see that every day in the global marketplace. We see it in our personal lives. We saw it with the infamous case of Enron. If I started talking about Enron and I showed you a picture of Bernie Madoff and I made a connection between a situation involving pure unadulterated greed and I compared it to the power of the Enron case, all of a sudden you would start adopting a belief system around what happened in the Enron case and the innocent victims. And it might give you some motivations to adopt a belief system and take action, whether it was to agree with something that combats greed, you name it. But think about, as you hear greed and some of the other themes we're going to talk about in just a minute, what's your feeling? What's your response to that? The idea is we take a theme, we connect it to our presentation, and we use it to persuade. In addition to greed, we have anger. We see that every day. People that do things out of anger. People want to do things out of revenge. Think of the feelings that you have when you think of the themes like anger and revenge. Jealousy. Is somebody jealous? We have ideas around jealousy. We adopt a moral system of right versus wrong versus when we hear these themes. Think about them. And of course, one of my favorite themes, bureaucracy. I am very fortunate to have the opportunity to live and work in Italy. And as much as I love this country, I cringe every time I have to interact with a government agency and encounter the bureaucracy. It is what it is, but when you start thinking about bureaucratic red tape, whether it be the governments or whether it be a business that is doing things that just basically make you go through steps unnecessarily, that are wasteful, that are efficient, we all of a sudden have some ideas about the theme of red tape and bureaucracy. So here again, these are powerful themes. And then of course, last but not least, one of my favorite themes is the David versus Goliath, the bullies versus the underdogs. Those are very powerful themes that carry with them some very powerful ideas, some belief systems, and some motivations to take action in situations where we have victims, we have bullies, we have underdogs, we have Davids, we have Goliaths. So think about themes in the context of using the elevator speech. So the next time you have to give a presentation and you know that you're going to have people that will come to this with a short attention span already, it's the reality of the technological world that we live in. So use the elevator speech. Sit down with a friend, a colleague, or sit down with yourself. Can you explain the importance of what you're about to present in 1 minute or less, 2 minutes max? Do you have an effective theme that helps you communicate your message? Have you conquered in your elevator speech the 3 essential pillars of persuasion? Have you explained the situation in a simple and straightforward way that people will easily understand? Have you used themes to do it? Have you convinced your audience that your position is right? And how have you used your theme to do it? And last but not least, have you motivated your audience in whatever way is appropriate for the presentation? Have you motivated them to take an action to agree with you in some way? Voting for your position, agreeing to hire you, agreeing to adopt your proposal, you name it. Those are the 3 pillars of persuasion. We accomplish that with the elevator speech as an effective technique that helps us hone our message, that helps us develop effective themes, and that will help us become dynamite communicators in our professional lives. So give the elevator speech a try. If you have a pet goldfish, you could even put your goldfish on the table and give your goldfish the elevator speech. We know, thanks to the Microsoft study, the goldfish is going to pay a lot more attention than you will. So your goldfish might be a good colleague to try out your elevator speech on. Whoever it is, however it is, give it a shot. I guarantee you it'll work. And if you do, share with us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to share your experiences with our audience. So until our next episode, for my colleagues at Empower, I'm Lisa Marchese, and I want to thank you for joining us today for the closing argument. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thanks a lot. Ciao, ciao.